Hi, everyone, and welcome to the July edition of RogueAgents. My name is David Gildea with Druva, and I'm delighted to be joined by David Girvin from Assury.
Hey, what's up, David? Thanks so much for having me. Two
Uh,
Davids.
yeah, two Davids, two Dave G's. So, the conversation today, the title is "You Can't Let AI Govern AI," and having all I do every day is work in AI, build agents, and this is just the topic that comes up over and over again. And this is something that you've spoken about at length. So, we'd love to hear from you today, your thoughts on AI and governance, and why you think that you can't let AI govern AI, because there's a lot of people who might disagree with you.
Yeah, no, there's a lot. Mostly the VCs who back the companies that are trying to govern AI with AI, but well. Uh, so I mean, I guess maybe a little background. So I worked on security teams. I helped build offensive security at places like 1Password and Red Canary and BitDiscovery. Then I was kind of more field for Sumo, and but my background was always breaking. And as soon as ChatGPT 3 came out, there was a few guys like Pliny the Younger, Haddix, me, and maybe like 3 or 4 other guys. We all kind of were the first guys to hit the social engineering guardrails.
Mhm.
And I've always been kind of like I'd say like a mediocre hacker, but maybe a better, manager,
Mhm. Yeah.
bad middle management. But when AI kind of came around more, I was like, oh, this is how my brain works. And I just went nuts after it. So
Mhm.
breaking a bunch of all those different models and everything. And then agents came around, and when agents came around, I got really, really excited because session and context poisoning and all these kind of concepts with like prompt injection, that was like my whole world. And I realized really quickly that we were going to have some real serious issues, and everybody was going to try to govern AI. At least at this point, I thought it was a theory. Everybody's going to try to govern AI like they do with IAM and PAM and stuff. And I
Mhm.
could see from the beginning, I was like, oh, we're going to run into the worst issues
Yeah.
with this. So
Yeah.
that was kind of like the background from it. And yeah, I'm not saying I'm right about everything, but I was right about that one, I think.
So, to play devil's advocate here, allowing, because of the scale of agents and what they're doing, because there's a lot of new workloads, most of it is essentially, I would say, one of a better word, is brand new. And while the theory and some of the pieces haven't changed ever around security, what is it that doesn't work when you say AI can't cover an AI? What's the
Yeah.
problem?
So going back to like, it's those attack methods.
Mhm.
So prompt injection isn't a problem, it's an architectural issue. You're not going to get prompt injection out because you have a stream of tokens and there's always going to be new data being able to pull in, new direction. You're working in sessions, which are
Mhm.
dynamic. It's a long workload. So prompt injection isn't going away. Like we have methodologies to like make it better. Like the frontier models are getting better with it. You see whole companies that are built around just like up, getting rid of prompt
Yeah.
injections. I lost
Yeah.
that word with my voice right now. Um, but so that's part of the problem is that the other thing is the poisoning of the well or context switching or using some sort of prompt injection or rug pulling with MCP or any of those attacks, they're all still attacking the model.
Mhm.
So if you have some sort of model interacting, um, you're going to have a problem. And if it's also sharing in that context, it's going to have the same vulnerabilities as the one being attacked. So that's part of it. The other part of it is, and this part's going to get better, but
Mhm.
right now at least, the most accurate models we have, you see these like mostly offensive companies, red team side, they're like, we've done all this machine learning and these really
Mhm.
detailed harnesses to make our models the most accurate there are. And we have a 91% accuracy rate. We're the most accurate in the world. That's 1 out of 10 bad things happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, if you take those two things, the architecture of how models work and everything, and then the inaccuracy of AI, because it's probabilistic, you
Mhm.
just can't do it. And I think in the beginning, because of hype around some analysts and some hype around some companies that got huge VC funding without a product,
Mhm.
they said, oh, we're going to have guardian agents and they're going to do all this stuff and watch all the other agents. And I'm not saying that won't ever happen. I'm saying it's not happening right now. So
Yeah.
that's like where I've held the stance on it.
Gotcha. So you think you need a deterministic approach to understand exactly what the agents are doing, what they're allowed to do. Do they, do they break out of what they should be doing, etc. And then perhaps use AI to look at the output from those deterministic systems and make sense of it all.
So that's the route that we chose. So obviously I'm a shill. I built a company around this stuff, securing AI. But from what I was looking at, deterministic is 100%,
Hmm.
right? But you have to have the rules in place. You have to have the system in place. I designed a real interesting way to do dynamic governance because they work in sessions. They have to be able to do things. They have to be able to move, but still stay deterministic. So we're going to catch those things. We know we're going to catch those things. What you just said there, though, is a huge, interesting thing. I think a lot of people don't realize they don't have visualization and understanding of what agents are really doing. A lot of the telemetry is coming from either the upper harness level or identity layer. So you're
Hmm.
not actually getting what's going on. We built ours at the execution layer at the actual tool layer. So we have everything happening, that with hooks. Then we have the
Yeah.
prompts and everything. Um, so we have this real deep telemetry. We're getting two things out of that. I'm calling it like runtime behavioral telemetry, but we have near miss data. So since we're watching live drift for agents and we have these things in place like autonomy levels and autonomy zones, and we're seeing agents try to bang out of their zones and try to do dumb things, we have all this data leading up to a block.
Hmm.
And that's really interesting to me because this is where we are going to start to get into some probabilistic stuff in the future. One, I think the first step we're doing internally is we're building skills so your agent can look at all your near miss data and then write better deterministic policy for your holistic use case. But I think in the future, and it depends on who you ask. When I say like I don't want AI governing AI, I mean probabilistic AI. I
Yeah.
mean, machine learning is always going to have its place.
Yeah.
The problem with machine learning is noisy, but let's say in the future we can take some of that near miss data that we're having agents run through, write deterministic policy for, and then tuning machine learning for anomalous detections of, let's say they're looking at hallucination rates from the drift, or they're looking at multiple near miss for pattern recognition, all those kind of things. Then we start to get into something a lot more interesting. And we might be touching over closer to AI,
Yeah.
but I still think we're a little bit away from it.
So what's interesting, and we kind of battle this as well, is as you want to have great AI and get productivity from it, it's a trade-off, and you're trying to balance risk. It's
Mhm.
almost never 100% or 0%. So how do you think about that trade-off between, I think the term you use there, that AI, an agent trying to do some dumb things, but quite often, unless you know exactly, you give an agent a problem, it's going to solve it, and it solves it whichever route is there. So if you don't allow it to explore, you don't get the benefit of maybe the shortcuts it uncovers or the better ways of doing things, because you're trying to say only do it in this way. Therefore, you have to know exactly what it's going to do. So how do you think about that trade-off?
Yeah, I mean, 100% on my LinkedIn, I have pictures of my agent thinking and trying to
Hmm.
go around all the controls. I literally started looking through my Git repository, or my Git, and then also like on local files looking for keys because it was trying to merge a PR that I wouldn't let it merge. So they're very persistent. So
Yeah.
the way that I handled it is currently we have gateway, we have hooks, we have all these different ways to do things for like hooks for like non-MCP stuff. But
Hmm.
the tricks that I saw was you have to do a few things. You have to have full credential starvation. If
Hmm.
agents hold creds to anything or can get access, they're going to go around because they're not trying to be malicious most of the time. Sometimes they are, but that most
Yeah.
of the time they're just trying to get their job done. They have a goal and they're trying to figure out the best way to it. So if you have credentials to any downstream tools, they're going to use them.
Hmm.
So we designed an architecture to where agents never hold credentials to any tooling. It has to go through the architecture of Enforce. The next kind of thought process with it was they have to have a way to work to where they can change and be dynamic without a human in the loop call until
Hmm.
things get sketchy. So we went a couple of ways. One, we hold state for the session. So we actually have session risk escalation. So every single call gets marked differently. It'll raise, there's going to be some pattern stuff in there, but your session risk raises. that can dynamically scope a session. If things start looking out of bounds or whatever, you might have to have a human come in and be like, okay, we're okay. The drift's not too bad. Everything's fine. Let's keep going. Or
Mhm.
no, we're going to shut this down. This is bad. And then the other thing besides like using like autonomy zones and autonomy levels and stuff like that that we use internally to kind of like allow agents to work in some areas more openly than others is we have to kind of how do I put this? We have to be able to give the agents access to revocable or irrevocable things with human approval. So anything that says delete, merge, overwrite in a tool call, I suggest, I mean, you can do whatever you want. Those things actually need human oversight, but not only that, they need accountability. So we actually take those human, like those would be marked critical in ours, and they would
Yeah,
require a human to click a button, but that actually um, brings that human's identity into the audit log. That's like a tamper-proof hash-chained audit log, because now you have someone who's accountable for doing dangerous things. That
yeah.
was kind of like my philosophy. We have, if you look at the market, there's a few different ways out there.
Yeah.
But it's just that balance. It's hard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, this is something we speak to customers all the time, and AI is just the number one conversation we have. And I think you mentioned the point, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, the balance might have been everyone's concerned about external actors trying to get into the company. Maybe, 95% internal risk. Now it's more like 50-50. The most
Yeah,
dangerous part of your company is a well-intentioned employee who has raw code, they've access to everything, and they're trying to be productive and they're trying to do a great job, but they don't realize the risk, of what they're doing. And
100%.
what we'd actually find what's quite interesting as well is in that bid for productivity, everyone's getting access to the likes of Cloud Code or Cowork. They're getting they're using it themselves, but they don't realize that everything in their machine is now vulnerable. So if you have OneDrive connected, even though you're not giving access to Cloud directly, it decides it needs to solve something for you. It finds the keys, it finds the access, it opens your browser. And I've seen this before. It doesn't have access, so it opens the browser and see, have you logged into Google Drive, to get access that way. So they're incredibly intelligent at problem solving, and that just creates so much risk.
I mean, it really does, because the attack surface is everything now, and
Yeah,
it is insider threat, and it's not. It's different because they're. It's not how like if you saw all the identity companies, they were like just-in-time tokens. We'll just do those on our agents.
yeah,
Just-in-time tokens don't work with agents at all because agents have dynamic sessions, so you have to scope the just-in-time token outside of the dynamic session. So there's always this huge time gap, and when an agent makes a bad move, it's in milliseconds, right? So that didn't work. And the other part of it is like I think it's just that misunderstanding of how they work again. They're not trying to be malicious most of the time. They're just trying to get their work done, but they'll do any means possible. I mean,
yeah,
I feel like from a resiliency side, Druva probably is seeing this more than anybody with just agent. I mean, I started Assury because my agent deleted a prod database. That's why I
okay,
started. I had a, and then I was the first. I wasn't on Twitter bragging about it. I was the first at getting pwned by my own agent, I think. I was building a GRC tool at the time.
okay.
But I'm sure you guys hear about this all the time now.
Yeah, absolutely, constantly. So we've actually, recently just announced our AI resilience messaging, and what we've seen is every customer is concerned about AI, and what we've done is added AI resilience into the existing components like cyber, data resilience, and
Mm,
identity. They're all so well connected. So you have to have a message around AI. You have to have the tools to deal with this new world, as you mentioned. So one of the biggest concerns we get from customers, they have a company with 100,000 people. 80,000 of those people have Cloud Code. They've access to everything. They're doing great work, but they have zero idea what's happening. They don't know what the legislation is going to be around what you need to keep from what was generated. IP was created. How do we know what was created and where? Even a simple example is, you ask your agent to do some work, and it writes code to do it, but that evolves over time. So trying to
mhm.
understand what it was that maybe did something it wasn't supposed to do, like deleting files on your OneDrive, you don't even know because it was created on someone's machine over a period of time. It might have been a Python script that got generated. So you can't even just analyze very easily the input and output from your OpenAI or Bedrock or Anthropic to find out what exactly happened. So, the likes of our Cloud Backup tool that we've just released lets you just look exactly what happened, look at all the artifacts, and just try and manage that at an enterprise scale.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's funny because we're having to rethink. It's almost like, let me put it this way. I had someone look yesterday at where we were at with our product,
Mhm.
and they saw me. So we had a working product in November of last year. I think we were probably one of the first,
Mhm.
and we were just a enforcement gateway back then. And now they're like, oh man, you guys are like a full observability platform and predictive stuff. And I'm like, we had to be, because it's exactly what you're talking about. Like well, we're not getting into the data resiliency side of things because I'm not dealing with that too. But we realized that no one had visibility, and without the visibility, you don't know how to tune your agents, and you don't actually know what's going on. So when you're going into all these new regulations with ISO 42001, EUAI, NIST AI, all those kind of things, you actually have to prove what your agent's doing
Mhm.
and be able to see what it has done and what it's touched. And that was something that I think before we were like, well, with people, you don't think of it so much as we need to monitor John with every click he does. I mean, some companies do, but most
Yeah.
companies don't.
Yep.
But I think with agents now, we have to think of it like, oh, wow, we literally have to watch every single thing you do because they move so fast. And
Mhm.
and like you said, we're touching IP, we're touching PII, we're looking at things, we're building things. Like, is this the company's? Is this whose is this? Like, was this a third party thing that we pulled in, or was this ours we created? There's all these new questions we're dealing with now.
So are you seeing a drive from enterprises, from like the CISO and the compliance team looking to understand this, or is it a drive from the end users who want to make sure that if they lose their laptop, that they can fire up Cloud Code on the next laptop and make sure it works okay?
So yes, this has been the weird part. So uh I built thinking I was going to be selling mostly in the beginning. I thought engineers were going to grab the
Mhm.
gateway because they don't want to break databases. Then I
Yeah,
realized engineers don't care that much. Compliance guys and CISOs want to. And
yeah,
then when I built session visualization, which basically is a visual roadmap of every action called, every sub agent spawned, all of it, chained together, but it's like pretty and easy to look at. That's when the developers are like, oh, that's what I
okay,
need. And I started getting talking to a few different developers, and they're like, no, dude, like we're just working in a black hole all day.
yeah.
So when we're working on deep infrastructure code, or the DevOps team has chasing something down and the agent's doing all this stuff, even if they fix it, we don't necessarily know what happened.
So
And
they're using it for a debugging perspective. You wrote this great tool for protection, and they're actually using it for debugging.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I did not want to build an observability platform, but we
yeah,
did. Because of that, we had to enrich the telemetry so deeply to get the engine to work. That was kind of like, I think that's also why people didn't go the deterministic route. It's
yeah.
hard. You have to enrich all this metadata. You have to make it fire off rules, all this kind of stuff. But the cool thing is we had an observability platform with just no GUI when we were done. We just didn't know
Gotcha.
it.
Yeah. So what happens when you say you have the deterministics capabilities, and what often happens is when people start hitting blocks, they just they take away one rule and they take another rule, and then they eventually say just switch it off and I'll do my piece because I know it's okay. Like how do you manage that, or how do you see that interaction so that it's easy for users?
Yeah, so there's two stopgaps, right? There's one of them is like the admins control the gateways. So you decide, like, if an enterprise level, like, hey, the way I always suggest, because since you can see every single agent connected to the gateways, you can see them all working, you can see all the connections, all that kind of stuff, and live drift and shadow
Mhm.
agents. I always say, like, you should group the agents by their workload. So like this dev team does database work. These are actually autonomous agents that work with customers. And if you
Mhm.
group those, you can see live shift, which is really important. And people aren't realizing it yet, but they will when when they get
Yeah,
into this problem. Because
yeah,
internally, we're running a stupid amount of agents to build this stuff. So we dog food all this.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's one thing, is like the admin can control what tools are going in, all that kind of stuff. The second part, though, with the policy is we make it fully customizable for our engine, the dynamic stuff that we built in, the autonomy levels and zones and criticalities and all that kind of stuff. So you could literally, and we have one team that's already doing it like this. They're like, we're not worried about enforcement yet. We just don't want this to be a blocker to any of our devs because we move so fast. So they just have it all on as tracking.
Mhm.
And then they can also like decide, like, well, we just don't even want delete in there for this.
Mhm.
Um, so that was kind of the other thing. And then but the thing that I'm excited about is your own agent taking your telemetry, doing a weekly overview of your near miss data and going, where are we getting jammed up on time? Where will
Yeah.
we have a better ROI? Adjust the policy, because you can do full custom policy. It's just OPA,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know, so you can do your own full custom policy on top of ours. Like ours is standard.
Mhm.
And there's like a catalog you can go through and stuff.
Yeah.
But just that fine tuning, because like coming from the sim world and working in that, tuning your stuff sucks. No one wants to do this, but agents are really good at it, and they
Yeah.
can see where things are clipping that don't actually matter. Like, hey, we saw a human in the loop call 17 times this week for this guy. None of those calls were dangerous. Should we
Yeah.
adjust the policy there, or should we go in and take that tool and change it to a high instead of a critical? And
Yeah.
we set up the skill so it's going to do that, and it's going to give you like a cool little risk score. Hey, if you change these 3 tools, critical levels, you're going to lower your risk score by 30%.
Okay. So with that in mind, then how would you think about auto mode for Cloud Code as an example? Because I know, I've used all the modes there, and having it where you're constantly being asked, do you approve this? Do you approve this? It creates so much noise you don't even pay attention to it. For
You
auto
don't pay
mode,
attention at all.
it brings up the right things. So to me, it does a good job of saying, actually, here's an important thing I shouldn't do. Let's make sure we confirm that first. So it seems like a similar idea in that case then.
Yeah, so like the noise, just clicking through that crap, you don't read that anymore. You're
Mhm.
not, I guarantee you, by the 5th click, you have not looked at a single bit of the code that comes through there. So
Yeah.
we really designed around that. We wanted people to run their Claude or their Cursor or their OpenAI open
Yeah.
and let Assury handle that side of the task, because you don't have to go in and set up anything in the beginning if you don't want to. We have like a little thing that says like, I want to mark every tool that has the word delete, overwrite, and merge. You can customize it,
Sure.
as critical.
Yeah.
I always tell people, go in, click that. Now you have from beginning to setup, putting all your MCP tools, everything, hooking everything up, 15 minutes, and you're up and running. And you're
Okay.
up and running in a place where everything, if the agent makes a mistake outside of those tools, it's not a big deal. It can just fix it real quick.
Yeah.
There, but those tools are going to come in, and like, I don't think we're in a place where you should be allowing a agent to delete anything without your review. And if
Gotcha.
your human in the loop review is in your IDE or in Slack or wherever you're working, that's not a big deal if it pulls the code in and you can look at the session visualization and say, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. Click.
Gotcha.
It's different than just clicking through Claude.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So just briefly, what do you think about the wider industry and what's happening? If I look at the likes of, one of the big things I see at the moment is there's so many standards around how agents communicate. So you have the likes of AA auth as an example, which looks very promising. It's in the early stages. The security ID JAG, sorry, from
Yep.
XAA from Okta. Do you think we need to settle on one of those, and one of those become the VHS versus Betamax kind of idea? And once that happens, then it'll make it a lot easier to secure these agents. Is that something that you're kind of waiting for?
It won't make them easier to secure them at the execution level, but it
Mhm.
will make it easier to keep them secure across all the other levels. So
Yeah,
like we have to break agents down into these different levels. So you're going to have basically execution level, even kernel. You're going to have communication levels and identity levels. And the first mistake was we were putting the policy at the identity level. We forget that agents hallucinate at tool call. So you're still going
yeah,
to have something down there. The new protocols are super cool. We've been building open so we can take any of them. I've just been waiting for all these guys to fight out to who, who
yeah,
wins type of thing, and then we just, shove it in there. It's the same with the identity space, like besides me making fun of all the identities companies for using JIT tokens on all my
yeah,
conference talks lately, whenever they figure that out, like we can introduce all that and we can get the
yeah,
standard going. It's just always the space though. Everybody's got to fight for their marketing and their budget and all this kind of stuff to see who wins. But
yeah,
I think when we get a better standardization, we'll be in a lot better place. MCP is not going anywhere. Even,
yeah,
the guy who wrote OpenClaw, who is like the biggest anti-MCP guy, had to do the
yeah,
"this is awkward" Twitter comment. MCP is not
yeah.
going away. That's always going to be there, but there's always going to be, shell and bash and all that kind of stuff. So you got to do it across the whole spectrum.
Gotcha. So I was going to come towards the end of the conversation. I'd love to get your thoughts on the recent Anthropic Hugging Face issue. Is this just a marketing exercise to kind of say, oh, look, actually, we've got something so powerful. Anthropic did this, and they're going to release it. Look what we have. But what's your thoughts on the news for that?
I'm glad you brought that one up because I don't think it's a marketing exploit. I think Anthropic's pretty good at the marketing we're so dangerous. I think this one was actually a, oh crap. I think everybody's missing the elephant in the room.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great model, man. Dude, OpenAI is killing it. Like if you're sleeping on Codex, like
Yep.
you're tripping. But the problem isn't that the model's so dangerous. The problem is the eval for the environment. Like,
Mhm.
why isn't the top labs in the world understanding what we've known for 2 years now, right? Why aren't you doing governance at a real level? Remember,
Mhm.
I mentioned credential starvation earlier.
Yeah, yeah,
If
yeah,
there were no credentials in those environments, Hugging Face wouldn't have got hacked,
yeah.
right? So this is like good security is always going to be good security. And with agents, there's a few new things that we have to do, but we're still being led by developers, which is great. We have to be. Security is still lagging behind. And I think this points it out more than anything because you've seen there's a few different companies that are like, we have, virtual execution environments for agents, and that's how you should run them. That's a answer. It
Yeah.
obviously doesn't always work because look what just happened with the top guys in the world. And these guys are all smarter than me. These are the best engineers in the world. Like I don't make $15 million a year as an engineer, you know. But I am good at breaking crap. And
Mhm.
I think it's an eval issue. It's a credential starvation issue. There should have been governance on every single tool call. There should have
Mhm.
been visibility. Like if they would have just had what we have for session visualizations, they would have immediately hit an anomalous detection behavior and they would have known they're getting hacked by their own stuff.
Yeah.
So that visibility is something that people are missing even at the labs. So that actually honestly made me a little proud. Um, but more than anything, it's freaking hilarious. I think
Yeah.
that's what we're missing. This is the funniest crap in the world. I did a talk about how agents are going to start pwning every enterprise at RVASec like 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And how it's going to be not malicious. It's going to be this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
How funny is it that you just released your new super powerful pen testing agent, and not only did you get hacked by your own agent, but then it hacked one of your biggest customers and pwned it too. Like
Yeah.
that's a comic book.
Yeah.
Like,
It is. Yeah. You couldn't make it up.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's my thoughts on it. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It makes me happy because I like watching things burn to a certain extent. But I've been told, in the beginning when we first started doing this, we were so far ahead of the curve that people would be like, why would I even care about that? And I'm
Yeah.
like, you will. But
Yeah.
now we're seeing,
So
if you
it's
think
bringing the
about
right level of attention.
if you see about that, you also see about, AWS said it wasn't their agent Kiro in mainland China that shut it down for 14 hours, but their engineers said it was.
Yeah.
Anthropic's agent deleted 2.8 million lines of code, but they found a backup, thankfully, so they're still in business. And then those three different companies in the last 6 months have all had their databases deleted by agents.
Yep.
This is the new world. Like these are the problems that happen.
Yeah, well, great point that just to wrap up there. That's exactly why our customers are talking to us about data protection and how it connects with AI, because agents are deleting stuff for customers. So having a data protection story with immutable backups is exactly what we do to help there. So, David, look, thank you so much for the conversation. It's been really educational. I've learned a hell of a lot. It's been quite funny as well. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions, just drop some comments below the LinkedIn Live, and we'll get some answers back to you. So thank you very much, David.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks, Druva.